Hello Stratters, it's CreepEvee's and we are back talking about Brawl again. And I had a video recorded where I went through pretty much every legendary that I found relevant, which was quite a bit as far as who would make good brawlers, or whatever you want to call leaders in this format. I guess you'd call them brawlers, maybe commanders, whatever your preference is. Active Presenter really hates me sometimes, and that video is now gone. So that was about an hour and a half worth of recording before I cut it down. And I don't know, I don't really want to do that again right now. Maybe later, but this is the video that I was going to do after that, and we'll see whether we go back to the other one. But this is my top 10 for leaders for Brawl in the new Brawl format. If you don't know what Brawl is, you can go back and watch my video that I did discussing it, as far as what it is and what I think of it. I am very excited about it, so let's get into it and first address that this is not in any particular order. This is just the 10 that I think will perform the best. I'm not going to get into deck lists or anything. I'm just going to give my opinion on why I would pick these. And keep in mind, I am not an expert on standard, so it's a little bit different for me because I'm not used to being restricted to just the cards in standard. But I'm going to use my best knowledge of it to try and come up with this list. And also keep in mind that I'm recording this on April the 8th, so all of the cards that I'm using in the spoilers for Dominaria, I do have 2 of them in here. I'm using those as of this date. They could release more and change this list a little bit, but for right now, this is what we have to work with. So, without further ado, let's start off with Brawl, Chief of Compliance. This card is so good, and it never really took off as far as a commander, because commander you can't just play control. Now, as far as 1v1 commander, it did a little bit better because you could use it to lead into what is it? I think it was like show and tell that people ramped up into or something. Whatever it was to cheat out Ulamog or what was it? The big guy, Emrakul, or big girl, should I say? So that was pretty much his extent. But in this more limited capacity, as far as this format, and some decent counter magic that is in standard right now, and we're seeing blue get a lot of creatures coming up in the next set, as well as in Ixalan block. So I think that Brawl has the tools that he needs to have an aggressive strategy while also just being a really efficient control-based commander. You are limiting yourself to just blue, and that's going to be your biggest disadvantage with him. But I think that with the new blue cards coming out, you are going to be able to compensate for that. So definitely look out for Brawl. Now, jumping over into Camball. This card is so good. He's already made his mark in Commander, and even in 1v1 Commander to a certain extent. Tax Commanders are just always a pretty good bet. He is a 3-drop, so very easy to keep on the board. White and black have some incredible cards to work with in standard. I just see this card as being really solid. You're working with 30 life, and losing 2 consistently every time you want to cast something is absolutely going to be devastating. The thing that is going to make or break this deck is going to be how many creature-based decks we see. And as far as how I see this meta shaping up, I see there being a lot of creature-based decks. So you've got to keep that in mind. If you look at something like Commander, a A lot of the spells are going to be non-creatures, unless they're very specifically aggro decks. So you need to be prepared to see how that shapes up. But this card is just such a good tax commander that I'm going to keep him on the list to look out for. Moving on to Rashmi, who I think is one of the best commander cards that never took off. The problem is that it takes some setup, and that's why I don't think that it performed all that well in Commander. Commander's just a little bit too fast-paced. But basically getting to cheat something out, or getting a chance to cheat something out every turn, is always going to be solid, and there's a lot of small creatures in Standard right now that you can build up to and just keep cheating them out for free. You have a lot of Merfolk, you have a lot of your green mana dorks that you can cast, that you can cast off of Rashmi's ability, as long as you've got something a little bit beefier to cast. The card is just ridiculously good if it gets going. The question is whether or not the format will shape up into a way that Rashmi will have a chance to set up. That's the biggest thing. We don't know what the format is going to look like yet, so this is all really speculation. We'll have to see how it goes. Then Tishana. I think I mentioned in the last video that Tishana is the creature that I'm going to go with for this format. I'm really excited to build with her. It's going to be a Storm variant, which I think is probably the most efficient way to try and use her. I assume it's a girl. I'm pretty sure it is a female, but I could be wrong there. I think that this is just really solid. As I mentioned with Rashmi, you have a lot of small mana dorks that you can ramp towards. This format has Paradox Engine, which is one of the most broken cards ever printed. So ridiculous, so insane, and whenever you have a bunch of mana dorks, you can just abuse that so much. And we're getting a lot of mana rocks in this next set, so that just makes it even better. More things that you can put down that are going to untap every time you cast something. You get a ton of mana dorks out and you cast Tishana, then you get to restock your hand. It's just so good. And I guess I should explain the win con. You're going to play Aetherflux Reservoir. You can build up to 50 very quickly with it. You are starting at 30 instead of 40 like you are in some other commander decks that choose to use him. Well, choose to use it, should I say. So you're a little bit at a disadvantage there, but I think that this card enables Storm very easily. So I'm going to definitely try it out, and whenever I still haven't checked to see whether it's on MTGO yet. I don't think it is. But whenever Brawl gets on there, this will probably be the first deck that I feature. Now, going over into Planeswalkers, pretty much all the Planeswalkers are on the other one, but this is these are the two cards that I have picked out for the spoilers. I'm really excited about Jaya Ballard. This card is so good. Take everything that you like about Chandra Torch of Defiance and add this to it. You're getting your plus 3 mana just like you would get with Chandra, except you're only getting 2. Chandra does give you that ability to play things off the top, but getting to discard up to 3 and draw that many is so insane. You don't have to discard your whole hand. You're discarding the cards that you want to discard. You're getting to restock up to 3, but not even, you can restock up to 1. You have that choice, so there's a lot of flexibility with her. The emblem is incredible. You're getting you're giving cards flashback that wouldn't have flashback. It's so good. I don't see how this card could not be good. The only limitation is that you are putting yourself down to mono red, and it's generally geared towards something like burn spells, which you're kind of limited on in Standard right now. But there's a lot of aggressive red creatures that you can splash in with this. Just so much that you can do with Jaya, because you can just build so much consistency off of that +1. It's not even a minus, it's a plus to get like this hand fixing. And you're setting up your graveyard for if you get the emblem off. Like, it's so good. I thought about including Chandra, Torch of Defiance, but I just was kind of iffy on her. And then looking at Jaya Ballard, if you can figure out a way to include enough red instants and sorceries, which I think that you can make Jaya just absolutely ridiculous. I don't like monocolored commanders in this set. Well, I mean, in this format. I realize that I have a few of them on here, but generally I don't really like them for this format. But I just think that Jaya's consistency is so ridiculous, and I think that that's going to be a very important factor in this format. So look for commanders that can build consistency, and a planeswalker that's plus is to give you a incredibly good hand fixing ability. You can't ignore this card. This card is going to be relevant. I'll stake my, I don't want to say stake my life on it, but I very much believe it'll be good. I'm definitely going to try it out. Now, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. I think that there's some amazing stuff that's going to come out of all of these Teferi cards, and this one is just so strong. Let's start with the first ability. Draw a card. Any planeswalker that lets you draw a card right off the bat, I like. Especially because, like I said, I'm looking for brawlers that have a lot of consistency. But then the fact that you untap 2 lands on your end step gives you so much control options, especially with it being white-blue. Such a good ability. And then your minus is to put something... what am I trying to say? You put target non-land onto... Why can I not read this? As the third card on the top of your opponent's library. This is a -3, and he is starting as a 4. So this is a pretty difficult to hit ability, but it's so good. And with this format, I don't see it. If we have a lot of creature-based decks that we end up with, and there's just a board full of them, then this ability might not be as great. But whenever you have power cards that I mentioned, like Paradox Engine, there's a lot of cards like that this card just has a very good option to just put back, and then after that you're going to do your draw ability, and you're going to untap those 2 lands so you're ready to counter it whenever they go to recast it. Whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent and opponent controls. That is his ultimate. It is an 8 loyalty. Well, it's a -8 to do it, and he starts out as a 4. I'm not basing my decision to include him off of that emblem, but if you pull it off, how you gonna beat that? Like, it's so good. Like, the fact that he gives you a draw ability, it's so stupid. But I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to exile 2 things, and it's just a permanent. It's not even non-land. Like, you're completely crippling their mana base. This card is insane if you manage to pull that off. But like I said, I'm not basing my decision to include him because basing your decision off of a Planeswalker's ultimate in a format that does not have doubling season is a little bit of a stretch. These 2 abilities right here are more than enough to justify him, especially considering his color combination. But I have to mention that -8 because it's so ridiculous. Now, let's go over to the other cards that I've selected. These are all Planeswalkers that I picked out. This guy, I think, is going to be crazy good. Let's just go with the... What is his name? Angrath. the Flame Chained. I always mess his name up, even though it's not that complicated compared to a lot of the ones out of Ixalan block. Okay, so let's look at what we got here. It comes in as a 4/5 drop Rakdos, and it's pretty much your ideal Rakdos hand disruption card in this format. So if you like playing stuff like that in Commander, which I know a lot of people do, this is a great option for you. So +1, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. Doing that every turn and it being a +1 is crazy good. Like, the life loss in itself is really solid, but forcing the discard, absolutely fantastic. This just being doing this every turn and actually getting value off of it when you do it, just a wonderful way to consistently disrupt your opponent's hand. I very much like this, and I'm not really a hand disruption guy, but I think that this is a fantastic option. Probably your best option if you want to play hand disruption in Brawl. But then, of course, we have other abilities. -3, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it, give it haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. If its converted mana cost is 3 or less. There's a lot of good things to love about this ability. The fact that, in general, you're going to be able to sacrifice it, and when I say that, I mean that a lot of things that you're going to be working against in Standard and Brawl especially, I think you're going to be on a little bit lower side as far as the cost curve, but I could be wrong on that. Either way, you're getting to steal an opponent's creature, which is really solid, and you might be able to sack it off, which is even better. There's a lot of things to love in Black and Red in this format, so I think you have a lot of things to capitalize on that sacrifice engine, as well as a lot of things that can be a sack outlet if you're not able to sacrifice it off of this ability. And then at -8, each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. Like I said, I'm not going to base value off of ultimates right now, but this is extremely solid, especially because the ability is naturally putting your +1 is naturally putting cards in the graveyard every turn. Keeping in mind that this is such a disruptive leader, or brawler, or commander, I'm going to go with brawler. Is so disruptive that I think that there's actually a very solid chance to get off that ultimate, because you're forcing your opponent to drop cards very quickly, and if they're doing that, it's going to hinder their ability to disrupt Angrath and to deal damage to him. So I definitely feel like there's a lot of potential to actually ultimate him. So a little bit more relevant than some of the other guys that we were talking about and will talk about. But again, I don't want to base it off of ultimates. Him being a 5-drop is a little bit annoying, but overall I think that it's definitely worth it, and this is one of the cards that I plan on trying to build around. Moving on to Vraska, Relic Seeker, I really think that this card is going to do very well. It is a 6-drop, but it's coming in with 6 loyalty, so your investment in it being a 6-drop is the fact that it's going to be very hard for your opponent to remove this from the board whenever it's coming in with 6. I think that green is going to be very strong in this format. Black already is. So let's look at this. You're going to create a 2/2 black pirate creature token with Menace. I would be happy with this ability if it was just a regular pirate, but the fact that it gives it Menace is just like icing on the cake. And this is a +2, like, you're getting so much value out of it, and your ultimate is -10, so you're building towards it very quickly, which is why I do think that the ultimate is a little bit more relevant on Vraska. The -3 is pretty good. You can pretty much pop anything on the board outside of like a land, and you're going to actually get value out of it, so you're giving yourself a mana battery every time you do it, which is incredibly good, very good. Vraska Planeswalkers always, they're known for that minus for destruction ability, and now you actually get something out of doing it. It's a -3, but you're coming in with 6 loyalty, so you're very solid on that. And then the -10 as target player's life total becomes 1. This card is going to be great. And I'm not, like I said, I don't want to base it on ultimates, but this is a turn 3 ultimate, so a lot more relevant than some others, and you're generating blockers every turn to help mitigate damage onto Vraska. So I think that it is a little bit more relevant than some of the other ones. Look out for this card. The only thing that I hate about it is that it is a 6-drop, but otherwise I think it would be a little bit too good. This is incredibly solid and one to look out for. Now looking at Dillon Bane, one of my favorite planeswalkers to come out recently. Just a generally good commander. You're not going to do anything super wild with this guy, but you are going to be able to be very consistent in your control. We've looked at several control commanders that are a little bit more, I guess you would say that they're a little bit less consistent, whereas Dillon Bane I feel like is going to be your tried and true method of playing a control build. Giving something -3, -0 in standard has already shown itself with this card being played in standard to be very disruptive, because a lot of cards outside of like the dinosaur cards are really shut out by that. A -3 is really darn good, and you're cutting off its activated abilities, so a lot of the times you're just creating a dead creature every turn. The -1 to gain 2 life and draw a card I do think is very relevant. I do like draw commanders. He's not going to be your crazy, super powerful guy. His ultimate is really good. You're basically putting out like a winter orb onto the board in the form of an emblem that they can't remove. This is going to be a turn 5 emblem for you, so I'm not really going to factor that in. He is going to essentially shut off a lot of your opponent's creatures, preventing them from doing damage to him, so there's that, but don't look for that to be the answer to getting to your -7 emblem. Don't let that be your reason for playing Dillon Bane, I guess is what I'm saying. But if I had to say anything, I would say that if I was putting these in order, I think Dillon Bane would probably be in the number 10 slot. But I do really like him. I do think that he's going to be a very consistent choice if you want to play control. Very good color setup, especially with the new cards coming in, so keep a lookout for him. And finally we have Nissa, Steward of Elements, one of my favorite planeswalkers to come out recently. +2 to Scry 2. I love consistency building cards, and Scry 2 to add to is pretty darn good. I can't argue with that. Nissa is a X cost, and that gives you your loyalty. That can get annoying if you have to repeatedly recast her, but overall, like, there's so much like mana ramp in the form of your mana dorks that you have access to within green and some within blue as well. So you can build this up to be pretty sizable, and once you get it out, like, the +2 adds up pretty quickly. The 0 ability is fantastic. Look at the top of your library. If it's a land card or creature with converted mana costs less than or equal to the number of loyalty counters on Nissa, Steward of Elements, you can put the card onto the battlefield. So if it's a land, you will always get it out, because you can't have it. You won't have Nissa out if it's a 0. It would be dead, of course. So you're always going to get the land. Generally, I would see you playing this with a lot of mana dorks, so you're probably going to be able to cheat your mana dorks in pretty consistently, and you can obviously build up to something a little bit bigger. So kind of reminiscent of how you want to play Rashmi, but I think that this one might be a little bit more interesting and also a little bit more fun to play. So keep it in mind. The ultimate is kind of meh. which is understandable because it would be very easy, especially in regular Commander, to build up a ridiculous amount of mana and abuse an ultimate from this card. But you're going to untap 2 target lands you control, turn them into 5/5 creatures with flying and haste until end of turn. They're still lands. Something that you see pretty consistently with a lot of the newer Nisses, turning your lands into creatures. It's a good option, especially with them having flying, and I think this format might be a little bit slower. I keep saying that, and they might go and prove me wrong, but I do see it being a little bit slower, so being able to possibly do 10 damage in the air off of this ability is very solid, and I think that you can get to that 6 loyalty pretty easily, considering that this is an X cost, but it probably is not going to be your #1 priority, considering that these other 2 abilities are so good. But this being +2 to Scry 2, which obviously helps set up your 0 ability to be more efficient, you're going to want to probably use that pretty consistently, so you are building up towards that 6 very quickly. So I do think that it's a little bit more relevant than some of them are, but again, don't bank on your ultimates being the reason why you choose the card. So that is it. I guess I will end the video looking at my choice, but I definitely want to hear what you guys think. I got a little bit of input from one person on the Facebook page, getting a little bit of an idea what people are looking at, and this is just my top 10. Like I said, no particular order, and I certainly don't consider myself to be an expert on the standard format, but this kind of just comes from a little bit of theory crafting and a little bit of looking around online as far as what I think would be good ideas. If you guys want to see more of my opinions on these, like I said, I can go back and redo that video talking about the different commanders as far as pretty much everybody instead of just the top 10. So if you guys want to see that as opposed to just the top 10, but for right now I think I will just leave it at this, unless of course you guys want me to go back, and then I will re-record that very long video. If you guys have any criticisms, if you think that I was completely off on this, let me know. If you guys have any deck lists that you have with ideas for this format, let me know. Let me know everything that you guys think, because I'm really excited for this format, and I definitely want to start playing it as soon as possible and to start making videos for you guys. Won't completely replace all the other videos that I do here as far as Commander and Pauper, but I do want to add it in, and I hope that you guys are as excited about it as I am. But we'll go into the regular ending of the video. If you guys like the video and you want to show us some support here on the channel, leaving a like is a very easy thing to do, and we do appreciate it. And if you want to subscribe to see what I do here on the channel, as well as all the other creators here at Magic Gathering Strat, subscribing is the way to make sure you don't miss any of that. And as well, you can check out my Facebook page as well as my personal YouTube channel if you want to see more of what I do. And I think that's it. So I will see you guys in the next video.